In this example, we need to solve this problem here. Well, what type of problem is it? It has an equals in it, so it's an equation. And it has fractions in it with variables in the denominator, so it's a rational equation. And the way we solve rational equations is we have to find the least common denominator, multiply each term by the least common denominator to clear our denominators, and then solve the resulting equation. So, what is the least common denominator for this problem? To find the least common denominator, you go to your first denominator, and you need to have the first denominator, which is x minus 6. Now we go to the next denominator. I need an x minus 6. Do I already have one there? Yes, I don't need another one. So your LCD is just the quantity x minus 6. Next, we need to figure out what are the restrictions on our variable. The restrictions come from the values of the variable that make your denominators equal to 0. So to find the restrictions, you set your denominator equal to 0 and solve this simple linear equation. Add 6 to both sides, you get x equals 6. So your restriction is x equals 6. This is the value that x cannot take on, because if I put a 6 here, 6 minus 6 is 0, and you cannot divide by 0. So when we've finished solving our problem, we have to check our solution against this, because this is the one value that is not allowed. So now let's solve our problem by multiplying each term, this one, and this one, by our least common denominator. So my first term is a 5, so I'm just going to multiply 5 by my LCD of x minus 6. Minus x over x minus 6. Multiply that by the LCD. Since this term is a fraction, I'm going to turn my LCD into a fraction by dividing it by 1. So that equals negative 6 divided by x minus 6 times my LCD of x minus 6 divided by 1. So now I'm ready to simplify this equation. So on the first term, I distribute in the 5. 5 times x is 5x. And 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. Minus, on the second term, my x minus 6 is reduced. I get left with x times 1, which is just x, all divided by 1 times 1 is 1, and x divided by 1 is just x. Equals, on the right-hand side, my x minus 6 is reduced, and I get left with negative 6 times 1 in the numerator, which is negative 6, divided by 1 times 1 is 1, so I just get negative 6 on the right-hand side. Now let's look at this equation. It's a simple linear equation. On the left-hand side, I have like terms. I have 5x minus x is going to give me 4x minus 30 equals negative 6. I only have one lot of x's, so I'm going to leave them on the left-hand side. So I'm just going to add 30 to both sides. And so negative 30 plus 30 is 0. So on the left-hand side, I get 4x equals negative 6 plus 30 is positive 24. So to get x by itself, all I have to do is divide both sides by 4. My 4's reduce here, and I just get left with x equals 24 divided by 4 is 6. Can I stop here? This says my solution is x equals 6. But if we check it against our restrictions, the restriction said x equals 6 is the only value that I cannot have as an answer. So since I only have one solution and it is not allowed, then I have no solution to this problem.